Hi, welcome back to Gotta Be Me podcast. We're so happy to be here again with you today. We are your hosts. My name is Sophia Benyon, and this is my cousin, Peyton Benyon.
Welcome back to our channel, everybody. If you are new here, do not forget, smash that like button. Subscribe.
Smash it?
Yeah.
That was weird.
People say that.
That was weird. I don't
and
like
do
smash
not,
the like button.
Do not forget to subscribe. And please ignore this distracting thing over here.
So we're actually filming an intro for the video that you're about to watch. The backstory is me and Peyton were planning to do a review podcast about the first podcast that we did with Steph. We wanted to just break it down, talk about it like, whoa, what happened? That was long. What did you get out of it? What did you learn? How did you feel about that? Mm-hmm. And we were sitting down getting ready to do it.
And even just after looking at people's comments, right? People were saying this, people were saying that. They're saying, you need to do more research. You need to do this, you need to do that. And kind of just going back and talking about, what does this mean? What does that mean? Kind of doing a little more research and talking about it.
Right. So me and Peyton were like, well, let's just discuss it. Well, guess who shows up right when we're about ready to discuss it? Brother Steph. And he's like, no, I'm sorry, I didn't know y'all were going to record. And I said, hey, we were just going to discuss your podcast. So he kind of just sat down and we just ended up kind of visiting with him. But it's crazy. Like, he's such a wise man that just visiting him is worthy of recording. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it was really nice because I feel like because it was candid, we got a lot more deep and more intense in it than we would have if we'd have been like, okay,
let's start
recording right now.
It was just relaxed.
Some of the audio is not quite as good as the other, but I still think it's really worth the listen and us going back and reevaluating what we had said in previous recordings.
So we get into, we keep discussing politics. We talk a little more about Miss Trump. And I almost said Mr. Harris too. Mr. Trump and Miss Harris. We talk about African Americans and being black and what all that looks like. And yeah, I feel like it was just a really nice, candid discussion. And we were like, let's definitely share this with our fans. This is too good to not be shared. So hope y'all enjoy this episode with us.
Let us know what you think down in the comments.
Yeah, we'll be happy to hear from you. Enjoy.
There ain't nothing else rolling. We just talking. Okay, no problem. But what was I just? Oh, one of the reasons. One of the reasons why black people, I'm speaking specifically those people that are known to be African Americans, don't get the recognition and the respect that we deserve is because it's very easy to move into our cause and kind of disrupt it and claim something, almost like a colonialization, a colonialized mining of the resource of this culture, a mining of the oppression of this culture.
Why is it easy to do?
Well, because we haven't just really been identified. So it's easy for her.
And our roots aren't that deep.
Yes, it's easy. Well, I think I understand what you're saying. I would say, when I say we haven't been identified, we don't take the time to have the precision of language necessary or even have these kinds of conversations for people to say, that's right. So, for example, the people that have disagreed, so you had some comments. I read some, and you've read more than that. You have some comments.
The first video that we done with you has almost 400 comments now.
Oh, okay.
People are.
400 people. And 375 of them are like, no. But I think we don't take time to have these conversations because I believe that people, for example, that think Miss Harris is black would not disagree with us.
Mm-hmm. Like when we break it down.
I think if they would just stay and not be triggered, I think they'd be like, I know what you're saying. I agree. Mm-hmm. Now, it takes a bit of humility to say that, especially if you're kind of all hemmed up, like, no matter what. But if you just understood, I don't think they would say she is a descendant of American slaves. Mm-hmm. I don't think they would say that. I don't think they would say, Miss Harris is from the Dr. King struggle type. She is from the Malcolm X struggle. I don't believe they would say that. Because people always talk, the key words. Mm-hmm. Do your own research. It's almost like people walking around like zombies. Mm-hmm. Do your own research. Do your own research. Your own research. Sometimes that's what's messing with your own research because it's interpreted through your own mind and whatever language that you have been exposed to or whatever language you're capable of or whatever your bandwidth is and even taking in that research that you're doing.
What you perceive. And please go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
You gonna remember what you were gonna say?
Maybe not. Go ahead.
No, because this wasn't important.
Yes, it was.
I just want to say what was interesting to me about the do your own research statement was simply that research could lead you anywhere. Mm-hmm. There was also people in the comments that say, her father wasn't even this, black. Her father was that, and she didn't attend it, and she went and research can take you anywhere. So
you can find whatever you want to find.
One thing
Whatever you
about
wanna
Google
find.
is you can keep Googling until you find out you're right.
yeah,
So
that's
what you gonna
very
do?
well
I'm gonna
said.
keep Googling until I find out what I said was right. Bottom line.
Yeah.
And that's actually what I mean. Google. I'm just going to Google. So, but I think it is important to at least put forth an effort to do your own research. I'm only saying that once you find the facts, whatever they are, and they're out there, it still takes a process of thought. You still have to have the bandwidth to even process facts. Just because you know facts, I wrote about this in my book. Just because you know facts does not mean that you know the
whole
truth.
truth.
Now, facts are true. But just because you understand some facts doesn't mean the story that you extract from those facts is actually what happened, even though you have pieces of the truth. So I think do your own research. I think that's very important, but you have to have the bandwidth and the experience. And it's not just
And the prophetic perspective, right?
Yes, you have to have the right perspective. If you do your own research as a Republican, you probably, in all fairness and all respect to Republicans, you probably will be unfair to Miss Harris. Probably. I'm not saying all Republicans would, but I'm saying you would have a disposition that would prevent you from looking at her and analyzing those facts in the most appropriate way. I'll give you an example. May I?
Please.
Okay, so Miss Harris said, so somebody says she's stupid. She's not answering questions. She's one of the most stupid people in the world. And she says some things, and sometimes they have little music. I watch some videos. She's answering a question. Are we better off now than we were, Mr. Trump? And then they have this little, strange music to mock her. And she's like, okay. And she's doing her thing like, the prices have gone up. And she's not answering the question. And it seems like, and somebody looks on and say, oh, see, right there, I saw the video. I did my own research. She is stupid. It's not wise. I don't think that is an indication of her lack of intelligence. I think this is my opinion, I think it's unintelligent to suggest that she is unintelligent.
Yeah.
Now, again, that's just my opinion, but it is my opinion. I don't think you should look at Ms. Harris as unintelligent. I think the appropriate way to look at her in answering those questions is this, that she is incapable of filling the role that she is attempting to fill. And for that, it doesn't look well. I would look stupid too. Somebody came to me and say, hey, Brother Steph, brother, tell me what's wrong with that engine. I'd be like, well, there's an engine here. We need oil changes. Like I'll be saying nothing. They'll be like, he's a stupid man. We need oil changes, the carburetor and Pentium 360 space modulator. I'm reaching way back from the cartoons, and somebody knows me. But I'm just saying, I could look foolish, or someone can say
Anybody looks stupid.
Someone can say that he's an unintelligent man, and really, I would hope that somebody would look on and say, I don't think he's unintelligent. I think he's not a mechanic. I don't think Miss Harris is unintelligent. I think she is simply not a president. She is not the leader of a nation. And her intelligence is not seen in that venue. And that to me is correct. But for example, what I was saying about the Republican, I think if you're a Republican, it doesn't even allow you to be that diplomatic about Miss Harris.
Right.
Because she just has to be wrong. She just has to be, because this position doesn't allow me to be anything in many ways except just controversial in everything and go red or go blue. And it doesn't allow me to really look at it and say, no, don't do that. That's not the best. And the same thing with Mr. Trump. He says something, out there, and people are like, see, he's a racist. But depending if you're taking the blue position, he couldn't possibly do anything right to you. Everything from that disposition, everything that he possibly could do would be to his detriment. So being blue, it doesn't allow you to look at him and say, you know what? A personality that I don't care for is one thing. A gift to lead people and really be good for a country, that's a whole separate thing. But it doesn't allow you that diplomacy. It doesn't allow you to be able to be that honest,
Right.
because you have to be trapped in one or the other.
And all your either Republican or Democratic research will lead you to those.
Absolutely.
Opposing
So when I'm doing my own research, I'm really not doing my own research. I am doing research based on a predisposed analogy, a predisposed position of heart and mind. And everything I look at is viewed from that perspective. And that is the reason why we keep going round and round and have to, like, I can't even look at you. I can't even say it's a good point if you made one. Because now if I say it's a good point, I'm a Democrat.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, Miss Harris, no, that's a good point. Oh, so you're a Harris supporter.
So now you're
No,
voting for it, yeah.
I didn't say that. I said it's a good point. And I think people can't be that diplomatic, and that's one of the poisons of politics.
They do that with words too. Like all in their mind, all words are grouped either into a Democratic or Republican category. So as soon as it comes out of your mouth, you're pushed into that one or the other.
Right. Like the thought of being woke, right? People are like, you're a Democrat. I always tell people, I was like, I don't care. I hope I'm woke, right? Like I want to be, I get that there's a bad sense to the word, but I hope I'm awake. I hope I'm aware. I hope I hope I'm listening. I hope
But
I'm
you
hearing.
can't say that without people.
But you can't say that without like saying
So if you say-
so many other things.
If you say, I hope I am aware, then all of a sudden you're a Democrat. And then if you say you're not, they're like, well, why are you flip-flopping? Why can't you just take a firm stand and say whatever you mean? And it just doesn't allow you. I think there's a precision of language that needs to happen. It's back to what I was saying about African Americans. We need reparations. We're not going to get reparations because they only give reparations to nations. And there's been no national identity of the nation of people that are descendants of slaves. We don't have a nation that are African Americans or descendants of slaves or with that experience. We don't have a nation that we can identify like Jamaica,
Right.
Kenya, Nigeria. Okay, so we are just general black people. And so that allows
That's why
Miss-
he said it's easy for people
Yes,
to.
that allows Ms. Harris to say,
appropriate.
okay, look, these borders are open. It's not just borders, it's not open borders like what they're talking about. These borders of black people are open. So let me just jump on in there, and you can't say I'm not black. I can. Because of who you're trying, what kind of black you're trying to be. But they can't say I'm not black, so let me jump in and mine that resource because it's not identified. The border is not closed on it. Nobody's saying, wait a minute, she is not from the Dr. Martin Luther King people.
Right.
She is not from the Malcolm X people. Her mother and father are not of those people that made the spirituals. Like nobody's defining it. And when you do that, then you actually do close the border and you say, okay, I understand what you're saying. She is not that. She's black because her father lineage is black. She's an American, certainly, but she's not of the lineage of the people that we could call African Americans, known specifically to have the experience or lineage of the American slaves.
Right.
I saw a video one time. Can I tell you about a video?
Yeah.
It was a Haitian man. This white man was coming. He was giving him, I'm about to date myself. He was giving him the business. Okay. Cussing at him, everything. And the Haitian man, he had an accent. I didn't know he was Haitian. He had an accent and he was saying, oh, I'm sorry, sir. You gonna pick up this trash or whatever it was. So the white man is really like railing on him. After a while, the Haitian man in all his full accents started cussing him out. Okay. And he said, look, you're not going to talk to me like that. You're going to talk to me respectfully. And then he said, I can't do a Haitian accent. Have mercy. He said, hey, I am not African American, okay? I am not African American. He said, I'm Haitian, okay? And I was like, oh, well, go ahead with your bad self. What he was saying was, this is my interpretation. He can interpret for himself. What he was saying was, you white man are talking to somebody that you don't really know. I'm black. But I'm not the kind of black that sat at the counters and let people spit on me. I was never a slave in this country. I'm from a people that killed people that came and tried. Okay, I think that's what he was saying. He said, I'm not from the culture that has permitted these things to happen. Okay. And I was glad for him. I said, well, go on with your bad self. And I think people can easily, with those open borders of lack of definition or lack of specificity of language, You can come on in and take
He come
everything.
in and out as convenient.
Oh, you can take in and out, and she'll go out. Like she'll come in if she's elected president. She'll come in, be black, and go out, in and out as it pleases me, in and out as it's convenient. And really, the community allows that because we actually don't know that we are a nation within a nation, just as legitimately as Jamaica or Nigeria or Kenya or any of the other black nations. There's probably, and I haven't done this, there's 30 million of us, I would think, minimum, which is the population of the country of Canada. Somebody can fact check me, no problem, because Google,
Right.
But what I'm saying is, the point is, there's a lot of people that really make up a nation,
And
that really have an
could be an entire
economy, that
country.
spend a lot of money, that are actually used. Their cultural superpower, our cultural superpower, is used at anybody's whim.
Appropriated worldwide.
At anybody's
It's
whim.
unbelievable.
But it never like comes back in because of the loose borders, like you
Yeah,
said.
it doesn't come back in. And this is, in that sense, I can understand what Mr. Trump's saying. He's like, oh, you're going to separate families? No, I'm not talking about separating families. I'm talking about defining what this is. This is this nation.
What are you referring to, Mr. Trump?
Mr. Trump's immigration policy. He talks about how he's going to, deport everybody. It'd be mass deportation. But I don't want to get into that so much. I'm just saying that there is an African American experience and an African American nation, undefined, and that's why we can't get reparations, and that's why anybody can
Who
say,
will you give it to?
who am I supposed to give it to?
Who will you give it? Are
Like,
you going to give
yeah.
it to?
When you give reparations to a nation, you don't go to
Give
each
it to
house.
each
You don't
person.
go
You
door
give
to
it
door.
to the
I don't
people in
walk
charge.
I don't walk up to the house, or if I do give it to each person,
Yeah, that's
it
true.
filters through the nation. It filters through the
Give it to
leadership
the
of the nation.
leadership.
Give it to
and
the
from there, the
Yes.
people
person that's in
benefit.
charge of Israel
Yes.
gets all the money.
And there has to be somebody to speak for it. And so I don't
tell how
blame
it's
Ms.
gonna
Harris
go.
for saying, no, I mean, of course, she's trying to get elected. So I think she's mentioned to Mr. Sharpton that she would sign something that came across her desk. But I wouldn't blame Ms. Harris for saying, I'm not going to do anything for black people. Like, there's a sense where she's like, I don't feel like that about black people, the black people you're talking about. Just like, and I wouldn't blame her for that. I don't think that's bad. I don't think a Jamaican would feel like I feel about African Americans.
Right.
But I don't think that's bad. I don't
Like,
think
you
that's
don't need to.
disrespectful of the Jamaican. I think Jamaicans have their own distinct culture, which is beautiful and I love, and they're certainly black, but it is a distinct culture that's been identified, a distinct nation, a distinct country.
Right.
And that is what we lack.
So you think that lack of the distinction and definition as a nation is a result of a lack of leadership?
I think it's certainly a result of a lack of leadership, and I think that's one of the reasons why Dr. King was assassinated. Medgar Evers was assassinated before that. Malcolm X before Dr. King. So I think there is an effort of a white supremacist, systemically racist structure, and we could talk about that. Oh, so you're a Democrat? No. There is an
As soon as you say systemic racism.
Yes, as soon as you
you're
say
the
that. Now, but see, now I would like all the Republicans that liked what I said about Mr. Trump to keep listening. Like, don't turn me off now. You just liked what I said about Mr. Trump. So hear what I'm saying. There is a system that kills the fathers of the community that could be able to define it and gather the children together. And that, as you know, Dr. King and Malcolm X were moving closer and closer together. They were actually going to form one of the most powerful coalitions the world has ever seen. And of course, that's why they were assassinated. And a system or a wicked structure, a wicked power structure did that. So I think it is a issue of leadership. And black people, we're so, specifically African Americans, we are so scattered that I can end up being a Pan-African, I can be a 5%er, I can follow Daddy Grace, I can be a Hebrew Israelite, I can be whatever. I can identify as not black at all. I can be mixed and say, well, I identify as white because I have a white parent too. Like, depending on what's happening, you have this whole scattering of what the ideology of the nation could be or should be, or even is there a nation. And in the middle of that confusion of us, people can come in and just start robbing us, looting and taking things that actually belong to us. when really we're not defined as a nation and don't have a proper fostering of a pride.
And at this point, it feels like it would be super difficult even to lead Black people at this point.
I think it would be difficult, but I think one of the ways, so we're religious people, one of the ways to lead Black people, and I'm not saying, oh, everybody, you just want everybody to follow. I'm not saying that. I'm saying one of the ways to get led or to be able to find peace in such a confusing circumstance is just to acknowledge the truth. So these kinds of conversations that we're having, if anybody stays around, I think, I tend to believe, and I don't know how I would not believe this, I tend to believe that our conversations are reasonable. And even if somebody gets triggered, if they keep listening, I think they would say, well, I understand that. And then there's nuances within that. So somebody say, okay, but what about the people that can't trace their lineage back to the former slave? I don't think it's a matter of tracing the lineage back, because as in our name, African American, it's specifically general.
Right.
I think it's a matter of being identified as that. I think it's a matter of having that image in this land. I think it's a matter of our rearing being that. And it's not so much that I can trace my lineage back to Aunt Jane, who was a slave. No, there's nothing wrong. No, there's nothing wrong with that. And many of us can. But it's not just that. It is being raised in those circumstances, bearing that image, and your parents and your parenting, your experience, your rearing is that. And that experience is broad, but it's not so broad that everybody Black can just jump into it.
Right.
Okay.
And see, that's another nuance because it is broad.
Oh,
it's
certainly
super broad.
It's as broad as we are, like from blue Black to, my nieces. I got some nieces that be like, hey, they are light.
Yeah.
They're like red bone, yellow bone, whatever.
I was in Mexico and somebody asked me if I was a red bone.
And somebody in Mexico?
They said,
So, was it a Mexican?
yes.
In Mexico.
Yeah, they.
Now they was listening to some. They had some influence of African American
I was
culture.
like, oh Lord, I didn't even know what they were talking about. I was like, what is a red bone? And then I called my uncle and he was like, what? And he was laughing. So
Yeah, he probably. You're in Mexico. Now
I was at the market.
It's real when a
He's
Mexican
like, I'm
asks
like,
you.
I'm Black, and he's like, no, you're not. And I was like, look at him. I was like, and how you gonna tell me what I am? I was like,
Sure.
I'm saying I'm Black, and he's like, you gotta be a red bone. I was like, what is that?
Well, he was a Mexican. A red bone is Black.
Yeah.
A red bone is a Black person. Anyway, that's what they call it. Here we are talking about red bones. Let's cut that part.
No, don't cut that part.
Let's cut that part off.
No,
but
because
you just tell them what happened. But I think it just shows the diversity. There is a diversity in the community, and we are more than one thing.
It's broad. It's just not that broad.
We clearly are more than one thing.
Yeah.
And we clearly do impact the entire world.
Yes.
But everybody can't come into that broad scope of experience and pretend like they are that, because you really have to be that to say you're that.
I mean, it's called gatekeeping. That's what people always call it. They're like,
Okay, I'm gonna leave that to you. Gatekeeping, is that what it is?
that's what people,
I might be too
people
old.
always say.
All right.
Because we were talking about it, me and Sophia, because some people were telling, right, we talked about interracial marriage, and then we said, as young Black women, blah, 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 and people were like, you can't say that,
a lot of people
You
say
can't say what?
You can't say you're Black women,
Why can't you?
because we have to say that we're mixed, and saying that we're Black
Mixed with what?
would exclude.
they say well, they're of course they can't agree on this either. So there's the
People
section that
disagree
say
all
you
over.
can't say you're Black. But then that breaks off into people that say you should say you're biracial, and then other people say no, you should say you're mixed.
What is biracial?
And
Two races?
Two races, right? And then
It would
we
presuppose
disagree
that there
with
are two
that.
races.
And there's people that do disagree with that. Like, you can't say you're biracial. Let's say you're multi-ethnic. And I would probably at this point prefer saying multi-ethnic if I was going to say anything, because that seems like.
But
the
we
best thing.
talked about with people the one drop rule and the image you carry too. Like in America,
please.
I was just saying, in America, we are white. Our moms are white, our dads are Black, so we are white, but we can't carry that image just because of the history of slavery, the history of America. In America, we are Black, and it was interesting to me how many people said no, you're not.
It's totally interesting. I think some people say that. I think some people say that honestly, and I think some people say that in jealousy. I think some people say it because you'll be light skinned or what have you.
Well, I kind of know what they're saying. Like, I'm not going to try and come and speak from a perspective of being a fully black woman. I'm not going to try to come from the
Who is fully black? Name
no one's fully black.
Name a fully black woman.
That's what I told people in the comments. I was like, take a DNA test. I dare you.
Well, here's what's happening. Here's what's happening. And again, it's from a lack. I think this is an example of a lack of a definition of a nation of people.
Because
Everybody's multi-ethnic.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's leave that alone. We're Christians, thank God, because that's the only way you can make sense of all this.
to me, like that's the only way.
There's no way to make sense of
only
this. God
clarity.
said in the Acts of the Apostles, you know very well, God made of
made
one blood all nations of men for to dwell on all the face of the earth. Okay, so we all come from Adam. Okay, God did not make 1 billion men. He made one man. He said, let us make men, or let us make man, or mankind. And he only made one man. And inside of that one man are all the people that we see in the earth today. So in that regard, let's establish that everybody is one race. So you're definitely not biracial.
Right, for sure.
And everybody comes from one source. There's nobody that's just, I am pure, except we just say I'm pure human. I am 100% pure human. And that is abundant every time you see me and talk to me.
Back to being Christians. Good thing we believe the way we do. Some of these DNA results I've been seeing. Actually, in our family, we have on our DNA supposedly higher percentages of Neanderthal than the average human does.
Well, they got y'all wrong because I know y'all's family. I know y'all's family.
We're just
y'all might have switched with my family.
more to,
Like you actually relate.
more to the caveman side of the.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't know how much stock to put in that. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. It's no problem. It may be precise. That's not what I do. All I'm saying is it's very obvious that everybody is. There's nobody that can say, I am 100%, or few. At this point, 6,000 years later, according to the Christians,
yes,
very few.
You got some kind of something besides the something.
Right.
Okay. So I think it's just a matter of, I think it's a lack of the detailed defining of a nation of people. So are you white? Well, yes, my mother's white, certainly. So you could say biracial. In America, this is why I like the term African American so much, because African American, the image that you bear, not just in America, but around the world, you will not go anywhere in the world, no matter what, and they say you're white. And I think sometimes people say you're not black because they can say for any reason, because how you're dressed, you're not black, or because you're not from the hood, you're not black, or because you never did whatever, you're not black. You know what I mean? And they're not saying you don't belong to this nation. They're often rather saying you don't fit my experience of what I have understood what black people are, or the media or projection of what black women are. And again, the lack is because there's no leadership defining that. Our scope of who we are as a nation is so vast, and very often we're not even what we're projected to be. But there's a projecting of
There is a projection.
there's a projecting of something that we are, and often we fit into that.
we walk in
we
that light.
mold ourselves into the badness that's
darkness.
projected.
It's a darkness in that case.
And in that regard, I think only leadership of a nation can stop that, to say, hey, we're not this, we're that, which goes back to the situation with Ms. Harris. It's not a disrespectful thing to say somebody is not something or they are something. White people and black people have always been together. And definitely from the time of America, there have always been people that marry people. If I've never known anybody that's not been in the black community that's not been at some point they're married to a white man or a white woman, or vice versa. So there's a very broad distinction. But in America, with the system we have, I believe it's good to say, absolutely, I'm black, and we're in this vast
inside of this
scope
huge.
of what this nation is, but we are a people and have the experience of descendants of these people.
For sure.
Former slaves.
And I think that it's saying you're African American wouldn't necessarily exclude being white at all, because every African American in some sense is probably going to be white in some sense. So like
I
it's
think
not,
you're going to be hard put to
it's
find
like
a single African American.
It's
it's very accurate for even children that are so-called mixed to say I am African American, because that does not exclude their brother.
African American actually almost means,
It
right?
includes
Black mixed with
I think
being
what
Mixed.
happens. This is a good conversation. I think what happens sometimes is the white parent starts to feel left out and say, "Hey, what about me?" And be like, "Oh, you all right?" This has always been our experience in America, in this country, and this is why, again, we are a unique. We're our own thing. Like we're our own nation,
sure.
just undefined. And again, people come in and mine the resources. But I think part of our experience is that we, back in the day, unfortunately, we were raped. Our mothers, our daughters, our wives. And absolutely, why wouldn't that be? You have a wicked system with wicked people, and you basically have one of the books we read, the Land. You have a fox in a hen house. You just have people that can do whatever. And if somebody's heart is wicked, they do wicked things. And then, of course, children are born of that. And then you have people that started out wicked like that, and they actually fell in love. And they wanted to take care of their children. And then that's where jazz comes from. Okay, somebody's in there like, let me, did jazz come from? Okay, you go down to New Orleans, there were slave masters, or the white husbands, for example, that married the slaves, and they bore them children, of course, light-skinned children, and they classically educated them. They made sure that they had everything that they needed, and from that classical education is born the cultural experience that we call jazz, which comes from black people.
So purely African American.
Oh, it's absolutely, it's American classical music, but I can't separate it from the white influence.
Right.
And I'm not saying the white influence is good. Somebody say he thinks it's good. Come on now. I didn't say that. I'm only saying these are the things that make up our nation in particular. And when I say our nation, the African American nation, and that nation, I will hold that Miss Harris, that people, those descendants, she's not a part of that. Though American, certainly. Though Black, if her father's
Black
African,
American.
absolutely, absolutely. But the descendants of the slaves, what I'm talking about, that particular nation, she's not really a part of.
I love how the more we talk, the more precise my own language.
Yeah, it makes more sense every time.
I think if somebody would listen, I think they would agree. Like sometimes it's hard to agree because I don't want to. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm talking. I don't want to agree with you. I just want to believe what I believe.
I feel that.
I don't want you changing nothing. But we're not really trying to change anything, because actually, wouldn't we, like, isn't the nature of Christianity? I would acknowledge the truth.
To move,
like I
yes.
would change if I found out I was wrong. I'd be like, oh, hold on, I'm wrong about that. So what's right? Because I won't be wrong forever.
Right.
And I think there has to be a willingness to say, look, I'll follow the truth, and I'll do what I need to do.
Truth is definitely alive and moving. You gotta.
It was actually funny the other day on Instagram. I saw somebody, they had a story that said, who do you think would kill Jesus if he was alive right now? And they were like, the Democrats would. And so I texted them a big, long conversation about it. And it was like really interesting because we got into it.
You don't think the Democrats would kill him?
I said, I'm not saying who, but I said, if you look back what happened in the Bible, it was the religious people that did it. So I said, I think possibly the same thing would happen now. Jesus always hung out with the publicans and sinners. And I was presupposing that they assumed the Democrats to be the publicans and the sinners,
of
right?
course.
Because they're over there like, whatever. Hopefully they don't watch, right? Exposing the conversation.
You didn't say their name.
But I didn't, yeah. And I was like, if you think about it, it was those religious people, those people who thought they held the truth and they refused to acknowledge it when it came. And then I started getting into a big, long exegesis. And before I knew it, I had texted them so many paragraphs. And Instagram was like, this message is too long to send. I was like, well.
See, y'all do it.
But he was like, well, that was interesting. I didn't really think about that. And he was like, okay.
But see, people that are willing to have a conversation with,
He
I
was
feel like I
super,
can talk to them all day.
Well, certainly you can. And I think what we would find we're going to be people. So we're going to have our preferences. And
For sure.
And some people, it depends. they may not be able to cross over into a place intellectually. And that doesn't mean that they're foolish or non-intelligent. Just saying everybody has certain bandwidth. I am never going to be a mathematician. I won't be able to cross over there. I'm not going to be an engineer like that. I'm not going to be a rocket scientist. That doesn't mean I'm unintelligent. That just means, hey, I went as far as I can go with you.
I did my best.
I went as far as I can go with you.
That actually makes sense. Yeah.
And I think even in conversations like this, there are people like, hey, I went as far as I can go with you. And that's all that God requires. That's all that humanity requires. Let's just come together and let's talk. Now, what stops that, we would understand as Christians to be sin. What stops, it's not just a matter of coming together as humans, and if we come together, everything will be all right.
That's a very humanistic approach.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's not
because we carnal and all this.
Some people are absolutely not going to come and talk to you reasonably, and there's going to be something in them that resists that, and that would be sinfulness.
So we're just going to end that one right there. The conversation obviously goes on for another hour. Yeah. But we thought that's kind of where the theme ended, and looking forward to releasing the rest of it sometime really soon. What were you going to say about next week's episode? It's going to be good. I think that's what she was going to say. We're also looking forward to releasing next week's episode.
It's a good second half of the conversation. I don't know when that's going to come out, but it's going to be good.
It's going to be good. You all know what time it is. Peace, love, and hair grease.